Far away in the endless dark of space, a small ship drifted without power. Its lights were fading. Its engines were silent. And inside sat a little alien girl. Her eyes were large and bright, filled with tears that had no sound in the vacuum. She hugged her thin arms around her knees, shivering in the cold of her dying vessel. She had been left behind, cast away by the very people who should have loved her most. Her race was proud and merciless. They believed only the strong deserved to live. To them, weakness was a crime, a shame that must be cut away like a rotten branch. The girl was small and fragile, not fast, not strong, not gifted like others of her kind. Her family whispered that she was a burden, a weight holding them back, and one day, without warning, they abandoned her. They left her ship adrift on the edge of empty space. No farewell, no second chance, only silence and stars. At first, she had screamed and called out. Her voice echoed in the metal walls, but no one answered. She pressed her tiny hands against the window, hoping they would come back. But all she saw were fading lights disappearing into the black. Her heart broke in that moment, a child's heart torn by the cold hand of betrayal. Hours became days. Though she could no longer tell time, her food ran low, her water was gone, her air was growing thin, her little chest rose and fell with effort, and she thought perhaps this was the end. Perhaps her family had been right, perhaps she truly was worthless. The thought made her cry again, tears floating like small silver pearls in the low gravity. But even as despair grew, a part of her still longed to be seen, still longed for someone to hold her and say she mattered. Even a single gentle word would have been enough. But the universe around her was cold, silent, and cruel. Then something changed. Her ship's broken sensors flickered weakly. A signal, faint but real, echoed in the darkness. At first she thought it was only her imagination, a trick of her starving mind, but the sound grew stronger, steady, alive. It was not her people, no, this was something else, something strange. She pressed her ear close to the console. Static hissed, then a voice, deep and human. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Elias of the cargo ship Horizon, do you read me?" The alien girl froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She had heard stories of humans, strange creatures from a small blue planet. Her kind often spoke of them with scorn, calling them weak, soft, fragile. Yet here was one, reaching through the void, speaking words of rescue. Her small hand trembled as she pressed the button. Her voice cracked, almost. A whisper, "Help me, please." Silence followed, and she feared the human had not heard. But then the voice returned, steady and warm. "Hold on, little one, I am coming." For the first time since she had been abandoned, hope sparked in her chest. She could hardly believe it. A stranger, not even of her kind, cared whether she lived or died. She sat by the window watching the stars, waiting for this mysterious savior. Minutes felt like hours. Her weak body swayed with exhaustion. But then, there, through the darkness, she saw lights, a ship larger than her own, moving with purpose. It drew closer and closer until its shadow covered her dying vessel. Her heart raced, fear and hope mixing like storm and fire. Would this human truly save her? Or was this another cruel trick? Her family had called her useless. Her people had cast her away. What if this stranger thought the same? She closed her eyes, whispering a small prayer to no one. "Please, let this not be the end." The docking clamps clashed. The airlock hissed. Footsteps echoed through the narrow halls of her ship. And then she saw him, a tall figure in a worn suit, helmet light glowing. He stepped forward slowly, careful not to frighten her. She pressed herself against the wall, shaking, afraid to trust. The figure knelt, lifted his helmet, and revealed a human face, tired eyes but kind, with a soft smile that seemed out of place in the void. He spoke gently, his voice calm. "You are safe now." Safe. A word she had not known for so long. Her tears returned, but this time they were not of sorrow. They were of something new, something she could not name. Perhaps it was hope. Perhaps it was the beginning of trust. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. But inside that ruined ship, in the meeting of a fragile alien girl and a tired human captain, a new story began. A story that would shake empires and change the fate of more than just one abandoned child. And as the human reached out his hand, she hesitated only for a moment, before taking it, because even in her small broken heart, she felt it. The universe had given her a second chance. The alien girl sat silently inside the human's ship. For the first time in her life, she felt warmth, real warmth. Not just from the heaters around her, but from the presence of someone who cared. The human captain had wrapped her in a thin blanket, placed a steaming cup in her trembling hands. She had never tasted such food before, simple broth from Earth, yet it felt like life itself. Her eyes studied the man, cautious but curious. His hair was messy, his clothes worn, his hands scarred. From work, he looked nothing like the strong warriors of her people. Yet there was something in him that felt unshakable, not strength of muscle, but strength of spirit. The captain's name was Elias, and he spoke slowly so she could understand. He told her he had been hauling supplies between distant colonies. When he caught her weak distress signal, he could not ignore it. His voice was calm, patient, without anger or judgment. This confused the girl, for her people had always spoken with sharpness, always demanding, always cold, never gentle. She tried to speak, but her throat ached, her language clumsy. Still, Elias listened with complete focus, leaning close, nodding. She said only a few words, broken phrases about being left behind. Her chest tightened and she lowered her head in shame. She expected him to laugh, to call her weak. Instead, he said softly, "Then they were wrong." The word struck her like a beam of light cutting through shadow. Her whole life she had heard the opposite. Her family, her teachers, her world had told her she was useless. But here was a stranger, not even of her blood, telling her she mattered. Her heart trembled with something new, something fragile but bright. Still, doubt gnawed at her. She had been cast aside once. What if it happened again? She dared not trust too easily. Not yet. Her eyes darted to the stars beyond the window, endless and cold. Somewhere out there, her people still lived, and they would not be pleased to learn that a human had taken her in. Elias must have seen the fear in her eyes. He spoke again, firm this time. "You are safe here. No one will harm you." He smiled, and the girl felt the strange weight of those words. Safe. A word that felt like a dream. The days passed quietly inside the horizon. Elias went about his work, repairing systems, checking cargo, plotting routes, and wherever he went the girl followed, silent but watchful. She watched how he fixed things with patience, how he hummed softly to himself when tired, how he sometimes stared at a picture in his cabin, a photo of a blue planet. He caught her, looking once, and explained, "That's Earth, my home." Her heart ached with curiosity. Earth looked green, alive, so different from the gray steel worlds of her people. Elias told her about oceans, forests, skies full of birds. She listened with wide eyes, imagining herself running across fields of grass. For the first time she dreamed of a place she might belong, but shadows of the past were never far. One night, as the horizon drifted in silence, the sensors beeped. An unknown signal appeared, sharp and menacing. Elias frowned, checking the console. Patrol ships, not human. The girl's breath caught. She recognized the design at once. They were her people, searching the void. If they found her here, they would not forgive her survival, and they would not forgive the human who dared to help her. Fear flooded her heart. She whispered, "They will kill you because of me." Her voice shook, but Elias did not flinch. He placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "No, little one. They will have to go through me first." She stared at him in disbelief. This man who owed her nothing, who risked his life for her. Why, she wondered, why would anyone choose to protect a burden? But Elias's eyes burned with quiet fire. In his heart, weakness was not a crime. To him, compassion was strength. The patrol signal drew closer. Red lights flashed in the control room. Elias tightened his grip on the controls, preparing to run. The girl's body shook, torn between terror and guilt. If she stayed, the human would suffer. If she left, she would return to emptiness. Her chest burned with conflict. The patrol hailed them, a sharp voice filled with disgust. "You carry one of ours, abandoned for being weak. Release her or be destroyed." The words cut into her like knives. She bowed her head, expecting Elias to obey. But instead he laughed. A short, fearless sound, he answered. "Not a chance." The girl's eyes widened, her heart pounding. The patrol ships broke formation, preparing to strike. Elias pushed the engines to their limit. The horizon roaring against the dark. The girl clutched the seat, trembling, her tears falling silently. But deep inside, something shifted. For the first time, someone had chosen her, not because of what she could give, not because of what she could do, but simply because she deserved to live. As the stars streaked past, as enemy ships closed in, she whispered to herself, almost too soft, "To hear humans are different." And with that thought, her story with Elias truly began, around 800 words. The horizon drifted silently after the chase. Its engines glowed weakly, the sound of stress humming through every wall. Elias sat at the controls, eyes heavy, shoulders tense. Beside him, the alien girl sat quietly, clutching the blanket he had given her. Her mind was torn between relief and fear, relief that she was still alive, fear that her presence had brought danger. She glanced at him, uncertain. He had defied her people, fought to protect her, yet why? What could a human gain from saving someone like her? Her family had cast her out, her people had declared her useless. Surely, this man would eventually see the same truth. The thought clawed at her heart, making her shrink deeper into herself. Elias noticed, though he said nothing at first. He simply continued with his work, repairing the navigation systems. His movements were calm, steady, as though the near-death encounter had not shaken him. Finally, he looked at her and spoke. "You don't have to be afraid here," he said softly. But the girl shook her head, whispering, "I am only trouble." Her words pierced the quiet. She had meant them as truth, not complaint, for she truly believed it. Her whole life had been proof. Elias leaned back in his chair, studying her with tired but gentle eyes. "You are not trouble," he replied. "You are the reason I keep going." The girl blinked, confused. How could that be? She was no warrior, no leader, not even strong. She whispered again, voice cracking. Why help me?" Elias smiled faintly. "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing." He did not explain further, but in his silence she felt his sincerity. It was not weakness that guided him, but something deeper. Over the next days, a strange rhythm began to form. Elias showed her small things, how to fasten safety belts, how to read simple human words on the screens. He even shared pieces of food from his own rations. And when she struggled, when her hands trembled, he never scolded. Instead, he waited, patient as though every attempt mattered. This was new to her, for her people had never tolerated failure. They had never allowed weakness, only punishment, only shame. Slowly, she began to trust him, though fear still lingered. One evening, Elias brought out a small object from his pocket. It was a simple device no larger than his palm. When he pressed it, soft sounds filled the cabin. Music. The girl tilted her head, listening, her eyes wide. She had never heard such gentle tones before. The sound carried warmth, sadness, and beauty all at once. Elias explained, "This is a song from Earth. It reminds me of home." She closed her eyes, letting the notes wash over her. For a moment, her fear melted away. She could almost see the oceans and skies Elias had spoken of. In her heart, a quiet wish bloomed, a wish to one day see this world. But as the song faded, reality returned, heavy and sharp. Her people would not stop. She knew it. They would hunt her, and by staying with this human, she doomed him as well. That night, she could not sleep. She stared at the ceiling, whispering to herself, "I should leave before they come again." Her small body trembled, torn between the warmth she had found and the fear of losing it. She thought perhaps it was better to vanish, to drift alone once more, better than letting kindness turn to regret. But when she rose quietly to sneak toward the airlock, Elias's voice stopped her. "You're not going anywhere," he said calmly, without even looking back. The girl froze, her throat dry. How did you know?" she stammered. Elias sighed, turning his chair to face her. "Because I've seen that look before, the look of someone ready to give up." His words cut straight into her soul. She lowered her head, tears welling. "I don't want to hurt you," she whispered. Elias stood and walked closer, kneeling so his eyes met hers. "You're not hurting me," he said firmly. "You're giving me a reason." Her tears spilled, silent streams down her cheeks. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever seen worth in her existence, but before she could reply, the sensors blared again. Another signal, another ship, this time larger, stronger. Elias rushed to the controls, scanning the data. His jaw tightened. "They found us," the girl's chest constricted, her fear exploding inside her. This time, escape would not be so easy. She clutched the edge of the chair, her mind racing. Her people would destroy him without hesitation. She cried out, "Please let me go. If they find me here, you will die." But Elias only gripped the controls harder, his eyes blazing with determination. "If that's the price, then so be it," he growled. The girl's breath caught, stunned at his resolve. She wanted to scream, to beg. But deep inside, another feeling stirred. It was not only fear anymore, it was something else, something stronger. For the first time, she realized she was not alone in her fight. Someone stood beside her, not because he had to, but because he chose to. And though fear still clung to her heart, a new strength began to rise, a strength born not of power but of trust. The stars outside grew brighter as the enemy closed in. The horizon shook as engines roared to life, and in that storm of fear and fire, a fragile bond between an abandoned alien child and a human captain grew unbreakable. The chase was not yet over, but neither was hope. The alarm screamed inside the horizon. Red lights flashed across the cabin, painting Elias and the alien girl in crimson shadows. On the scanner, sharp signals appeared one by one. Warships, fast and merciless, closing in. The girl's small body shook, her hands gripping the armrests tightly. Her voice trembled. "They are here, my people." Elias adjusted the controls with steady hands. His eyes narrowed, calculating every second. "Then we run," he said firmly. The ship lurched forward as the engines roared, pushing against the void. The girl pressed herself against the seat, her heart pounding like a drum. Through the window, stars stretched into streaks of light as the horizon accelerated, but the enemy was not far behind. Their warships cut through space like blades. Elegant and deadly, laser fire streaked across the darkness, red beams flashing past the horizon. The girl flinched with every blast, memories flooding back. Her people's cruelty, their laughter at her weakness. Now they came to erase her. Completely to erase the human who dared protect her. Elias's jaw tightened. The controls rattled under his grip, warning signals flashing. He guided the horizon into an asteroid belt. Weaving between massive stones of ice and rock, the enemy followed without hesitation, their sleek ships dancing through danger. One mistake would mean death. But Elias's hands moved with the certainty of experience. The girl watched in awe, fear still heavy in her chest. How can you be so calm?" she whispered. Without taking his eyes off the stars ahead, Elias answered, "Because panic never saved anyone." The asteroids crashed against each other, throwing shards of stone into the path. Elias twisted the horizon sharply, sliding past a massive spinning rock. The engine screamed, sparks flying from the console. The girl cried out, clutching the seat, but the ship held together. Behind them, one enemy ship clipped an asteroid and exploded into fire. The girl gasped, her eyes wide. For the first time, she saw her people fall. Not by cruelty, but by the courage of another. Yet the others pressed on, faster, closer. The horizon rattled as a beam struck its hull, the smell of burning metal filling the cabin. Elias cursed under his breath, rerouting power. "Shields are failing," he muttered. The girl's chest tightened, tears rising. "This is my fault," she whispered. "If I was not here." Elias cut her words sharply, his voice thunder in the storm. "Enough. You are not the problem. They are." She froze, stunned by his fierce defense. No one had ever spoken for her like that. No one had ever blamed the world instead of her. Her tears fell, but this time they burned with something new. Not shame, but the spark of hope. The horizon burst free from the asteroid belt, its engines howling, but the enemy ships followed, still their numbers overwhelming. Elias pushed the ship toward a nearby planet, its surface a swirl of green clouds and stormy seas. The girl's breath caught. "That world is unstable. No ships go there." "Exactly," Elias replied, a grim smile tugging at his lips. "Which is why they won't expect us to survive." The warships closed in, firing relentlessly. The horizon shook, its hull cracking, alarms deafening. The girl clutched her blanket, whispering to herself, "Please, don't let him die because of me." Her eyes turned to Elias, his face lit by sparks, determination etched into every line. She realized in that moment, he was not fighting only to escape. He was fighting for her, for the right of a small, abandoned child to live. The atmosphere of the planet loomed ahead, swirling storms like angry giants. "Hold on," Elias warned, gripping the controls with both hands. The horizon dove into the clouds, the ship shaking violently as fire streaked. Across its hull, the girl screamed as the world turned into chaos, lightning slashing across the sky, winds tearing at the vessel. Behind them, enemy ships hesitated at the storm's edge, some turning back, but a few followed, determined to finish their hunt. Inside, the cabin rattled like it would break apart. Elias gritted his teeth, forcing the ship through turbulence. Systems failed one by one, oxygen alarms blared. The girl cried out, "We cannot survive this." But Elias only shouted back, "Then we make survival possible." The horizon dipped lower, lightning striking dangerously close. A final enemy blast ripped through the hull, tearing metal. The ship spiraled, alarms shrieking louder than ever. Elias slammed his hand on the emergency systems, fighting for control. The planet's surface rushed up to meet them, a blur of mountains and forests. The girl closed her eyes, clutching Elias's arm. If this was the end, at least she would not be alone. The horizon crashed through the trees, metal grinding, fire trailing across the sky. The impact roared like thunder, the ship tumbling until it slammed into the earth with a final shattering blow. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of flames and the hiss of broken systems. Smoke filled the air, the cabin dark. The girl stirred, her body aching, her ears ringing. She coughed, calling out weakly, "Elias! Elias!" For a moment there was no answer. Terror clawed at her chest until at last a rough voice replied, "I'm still here." Elias groaned, pulling himself up from the floor. Relief flooded her eyes, tears falling freely. They had survived the chase. Barely. But as she looked out through the broken hull at the strange green world beyond, the girl knew. Their journey was not over. This planet would test them in ways neither could imagine, and somewhere above her people still hunted. The chase had ended, but the war for survival had only just begun. The horizon lay broken in the shadow of towering trees. Smoke curled upward from its torn hull, mixing with the mist of the strange green planet. Elias and the alien girl staggered out of the wreck, coughing, covered in ash. The ground beneath them was soft with moss, the air heavy with the scent of unknown flowers. Strange cries echoed from the distance, calls of beasts hidden among the foliage. The girl clutched her blanket tighter, her wide eyes darting across the forest. Everything here was alive, moving, whispering, unlike the silent steel worlds she once knew. For a moment, fear gripped her heart. What dangers waited among the shadows? But when she looked at Elias, he stood tall despite his wounds, scanning the horizon with steady calm. His presence alone steadied her trembling hands. We survived the fall, Elias muttered, his voice tired yet certain. But survival is not the same as living. He pulled a small kit from his belt and handed her water. She drank slowly, her throat burning but grateful. In her heart she wondered again why he continued to share everything. Why he risked so much for someone he had only just met. Over the next days, life became a rhythm of struggle. Elias built a small shelter using pieces of the horizon and branches from the forest. He showed her how to gather clean water, how to start a fire without machines. She watched closely, memorizing each movement. When she tried and failed, Elias never scolded. Instead, he placed the tools back in her hands, saying softly, "Try again." Her people had never given her such patience. To them, failure was proof of weakness. Weakness was a stain, but to Elias, failure was a step and each attempt mattered. The girl felt something new stirring in her chest. It was small, fragile, but undeniable, hope that she could be more than a burden. One evening, as the fire crackled, and the stars glimmered above the canopy, Elias reached into his pack and pulled out a small object. It was a simple wooden carving of a bird, worn smooth by years of touch. He handed it to her gently. "My daughter made this before she—" He paused, his voice breaking. "She is gone now, but I carry it to remember her." The girl held the carving carefully, tracing its wings with her fingers. She looked up at him, sensing his pain, though he tried to hide it. "You lost family, too," she whispered. Elias nodded, his gaze distant. "Yes, but I was given a second chance once, and I intend to pass it on." His words struck her deeply. She remembered the cold faces of her family, the moment they left her to die. Her chest tightened, but as she sat beside Elias, she realized she was no longer alone. He had given her food, warmth, shelter, yet more than that, he had given her dignity. Perhaps this was what a true family meant. In the days that followed, the girl grew stronger. She learned to set traps for small animals, to weave leaves into coverings. When she stumbled, Elias guided her with patience. When she succeeded, his faint smile lit her heart with pride. Each small lesson became a piece of her second chance, yet danger still lurked. One morning, while gathering berries, she heard the low growl of a beast. A creature twice her size emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing amber. Her heart raced, legs frozen in terror. But before the beast struck, Elias appeared, standing between her and the monster. He held only a broken metal rod, yet his stance was unshakable. The creature lunged, and Elias fought with desperate courage. The girl screamed, fear tearing her apart. She wanted to run, but something inside refused this time. She grabbed a burning branch from the fire pit and waved it wildly, shouting. The flames startled the beast, sending it retreating into the trees. Breathing hard, Elias turned to her, his eyes filled with both relief and pride. "You see," he said between gasps, "you are not helpless." Her hands shook, but she realized he was right. For the first time, she had faced her fear, not by hiding, but by standing beside him. And in that moment, she felt stronger than she had ever imagined. That night, she sat close to the fire, holding the wooden bird in her hands. Her heart whispered words she had never spoken before. "Thank you for giving me a second chance." Elias looked at her quietly, his tired face softening into a rare smile. "You don't owe me thanks," he said. "Just promise me one thing. When the time comes, don't run from who you are." His words lingered in her mind. Who she was. An abandoned child. Unwanted. Forgotten. But now, perhaps, she could become something else. Not by blood, not by her people's cruel measure of strength, but by her choices, by the courage she was learning each day beside this human. The forest sang with unknown voices, the stars burned above, and though danger still lurked beyond the trees, the girl felt it clearly. This planet was no prison. It was a place of rebirth. Here among storms and shadows, she had been given something priceless. A second chance. Not just to survive, but to live. The forest was silent that night. too silent. The wind carried no birdsong, no rustling leaves, only the crackle of their small fire. Elias sat sharpening a broken metal blade, his eyes fixed on the shadows beyond the trees. The alien girl sat across from him. Clutching the wooden bird in her hands, her chest tightened with unease, for she could feel it. The hunters had found them. She whispered, "They are coming." Elias nodded without surprise, his voice calm but hard. "I know. I saw their ships enter the atmosphere. It's only a matter of time." The girl's stomach twisted, guilt rising like fire. "They will kill you because of me," she whispered, tears trembling in her eyes. But Elias's gaze did not waver. "No," he said firmly. "They will try, but tonight we stand." Those words echoed through her heart. Stand, not run, not hide. All her life she had been told to disappear, to step aside, to accept weakness. But Elias refused that. He refused to let her vanish, and now, deep inside her, a spark ignited. Perhaps she could refuse as well. The night split with a distant roar. Engines shook the forest as alien warships descended through the clouds. Blue fire lit the sky, casting monstrous shadows over the trees. The ground trembled beneath her feet. The girl clutched Elias's sleeve, fear pulsing in her veins, but Elias only tightened his grip on the weapon. "Stay close," he said. "But don't hide. Not this time." From the shadows emerged armored figures, tall and cruel, her people. Their faces were sharp, their eyes burning with disdain. The leader's voice rang out cold. "You shame your blood child, and you, human, are a fool to protect her." The girl flinched at the words, old wounds tearing open. But Elias stepped forward, placing himself between her and them. "I am no fool," he growled. "The fool is the one who throws away what is precious." The warriors sneered and raised their weapons, energy blades glowing. Elias braced himself, but before he could strike, the girl stepped forward too. Her hands trembled, her voice shook, but she spoke clearly. "I am not a burden," she said. "I am not useless." Her people laughed, their cruel voices cutting through the night. "Prove it," the leader hissed, lunging forward. Instinct roared within her. She raised her hands, and for the first time, the hidden strength of her kind surged. Energy flared from her palms, a shimmering wave that threw the attacker back. The ground shook, trees snapped, sparks flew through the night. She gasped, staring at her hands, unable to believe what she had done. Elias's eyes widened, not in fear, but in pride. "There it is," he whispered. "Your true strength." The battle erupted. Warriors charged, weapons flashing. Elias fought with grit and fury, his blade clashing against steel, sparks flying. Beside him, the girl unleashed bursts of energy, her fear transforming into courage. Each strike she made was clumsy but powerful, each cry filled with defiance. For the first time, she was not running, she was fighting. For herself, for the man who believed in her. The forest became a storm of fire and light. Elias cut through two attackers, his breath ragged, his body bleeding. The girl shielded him with her power, energy forming a barrier that cracked but held. They moved together, not as savior and burden, but as partners. She no longer felt small. She no longer felt abandoned. With every step, she claimed the second chance he had given her. But the enemy leader rose again, his armor scorched, his eyes burning with rage. "You are still weak," he spat. "You cannot escape what you are." The girl lifted her chin, her voice steady for the first time. "You are wrong," she said. "Weakness is not shame. It is where strength begins." Energy blazed around her hands, brighter than before. She unleashed a final wave that sent the leader crashing into the trees, broken and defeated. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of fire and Elias's heavy breathing. The surviving warriors staggered back, stunned by what they had seen. A child they had called worthless now stood tall, not because she was the strongest, but because she refused to be nothing. Slowly, one by one, they retreated into the night, their pride shattered. The girl sank to her knees, exhausted, tears streaming down her face. Elias staggered to her side, blood on his arm, but his smile unshaken. "You did it," he whispered, his voice hoarse. She shook her head, sobbing. "We did it." For the first time, she believed it. Truly believed. She was not alone. She was not weak. The stars glimmered, faintly above the forest scarred by fire and battle. Yet in that destruction, something beautiful had been born. The bond between a human and an abandoned alien child had become unbreakable. And though the war was not over, though the galaxy still hunted them, she knew now she would never again face it in silence. Together, they would stand. The dawn broke. Over the shattered forest, smoke still curled from broken trees, the earth scarred by battle. The alien girl sat beside Elias, her small hands wrapped around his wounded arm. Her eyes were tired but alive, glowing with something she had never known before. Pride. For the first time, she had stood. She had fought, and she had not been cast aside. Elias leaned back against the wreck of the horizon, his breath ragged, yet even in pain his eyes carried a quiet fire. "You see," he whispered, "you were never weak. You only needed a chance to prove it." The girl lowered her gaze, tears welling. "A chance," she repeated softly, the words tasting strange and new on her tongue. In the silence that followed, she realized something. Her people had given her nothing but shame, yet this human had given her a gift. Not weapons, not power, but something greater. Belief. It was fragile, invisible, yet stronger than steel. Belief that she mattered, that she was more than the burden they had called her. Days passed as they repaired what little remained of the horizon. Elias worked slowly, his injuries slowing him. The girl stayed at his side, learning, helping, refusing to let him bear the weight alone. Each time she stumbled, he only smiled and showed her again. And with each lesson, she grew, not into the strongest of her people, but into herself. One night, as the stars glittered above, she asked the question that burned in her heart. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you save me when even my family did not?" Elias was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on the sky. "Because," he said finally, "humans believe that every life has worth, even the ones the universe forgets." She stared at him, her chest tightening. "Every life has worth," she repeated inside. It was the opposite of everything her kind believed, and yet it felt truer than anything she had ever known. Word of their stand had begun to spread across the stars. Rumors carried on trading ships, whispers in distant colonies. An alien child once abandoned had fought beside a human and survived. Some called it madness. Some called it weakness. But others called it hope. Hope that perhaps humanity's strange gift, compassion, was stronger than fear. But danger still loomed. Her people had not forgotten, and they would return, stronger, crueler. The girl knew this truth, but for the first time she did not feel helpless. She looked at Elias, at the man who had risked everything for her, and she made a vow inside her heart. "I will not run again. I will not let him stand alone." When the next signal appeared in the sky, enemy, ships descending, the girl did not tremble. Instead, she rose to her feet, her small hands glowing with the energy of her kind. Her voice was steady as she said, "If they come, they will see what I have become." Elias smiled faintly, despite the blood on his lips. "That's the spirit," he said. "That's what makes us human, too." The battle that followed was fierce. Her people arrived in force, expecting to crush what they called a mistake. But they found not a helpless child, not a lone human. They found two hearts standing together, refusing to bend. Elias fought, with every ounce of his strength, and the girl unleashed her power with courage she had never known. She did not fight to prove her worth to them anymore. She fought to honor the belief she had been given. At last, when the smoke cleared and the enemy retreated, the girl stood tall beside Elias, her chest rising with steady breath. She had survived, not because she was the strongest, but because she had chosen not to give up. And as the surviving warriors fled, whispers spread further across the galaxy, of an alien girl who had once been abandoned, but now stood as a symbol of second chances, and of a human who had shown the universe its greatest gift. Later, when the fires dimmed and the forest was quiet again, Elias sat beside her, his voice weary but warm. "The galaxy will remember this," he said. "But more important, you must remember it too." She looked at him, clutching the wooden bird close to her heart. "I will," she whispered. "I will never forget what you gave me." The stars stretched above them, endless and bright, and in their glow, the girl no longer felt small, no longer felt lost. She was not the abandoned child anymore. She was not the burden her people named her. She was a survivor, a fighter, a friend, and though the galaxy feared the strong, it would remember the ones who cared, for that was humanity's true gift. Not power, not conquest, but compassion. The power to see worth in the forgotten, to fight for the abandoned, and in the bond between a tired human captain and an alien girl once cast aside. That gift had changed not only 2 lives, but the story of an entire galaxy, and so their journey continued. Not as savior and burden, not as human and alien, but as family, chosen and unbroken. A family the stars themselves would remember.